All right, maybe that worked. Let me know. It looks like it worked. I don't know. There's nothing worse than OBS, but it appears as though boys and girls, ladies and germs, I think we are live. Just waiting for somebody in chat to confirm. there's no easy way to tell. All right, it looks like paper clips here. It looks like we are good to go. Okay, good. Never quite sure. There's like 5 buttons that you have to press to just get to this screen, and then it's like, oh well, you did it wrong. Hopefully the audio is good. I tried to fix that as well. I think it's coming. Should be coming through both ears as well. Anyway, so what do you guys want to talk about today? You just pop off in the chat. You let me know. I mean, I got stuff to talk about, but if you want anything specifically, let me know. I just saw that Tether, I thought, released a report. Just wanted to take a quick look at it. Mainly because I just checked yesterday and I didn't see Tether's Bitcoin balance increase. Between Tether and Sailor, you know, those are the two whales who are actively buying at any given moment. Just worth taking a look. I don't think they bought anything. Let me just double check their address. Yeah, so it's not like super confirmed that they're the BC1 QJAS address, but I think we're pretty sure it's them. They don't have any buys here. If they in fact did put out a report, I don't know. I saw some random headline on it that they were lending something or something like that. So yesterday, Powell came out hawkish as he's ever been. I mean, he's said higher for longer for how many months? 18 months? I don't know. How long has it been? It's been a long time. It's been probably around 18 months, right? If we go to the S&P, he was, or they started to raise in what, like here or here? I can't remember. Somewhere over here, you know? We're still above that on the S&P, but like I've been saying, the technicals just looked extremely bearish. I hope anybody, you know, didn't get caught off sides here into the hopium. I don't know why you'd be bullish here. It seems like an obvious trade, but I know there were a lot of retail inflows into S&P, into the Qs. Last week, I think it was at an all-time high, which is another reason to tell yourself, okay, are all these people right? Probably not. Is that a crowded trade? Probably. So the other question obviously is, can Bitcoin do well if this is going down? Why is the S&P breaking down, right? We don't know Sailor's address, but at least I don't think we do. There's this thing called the Sailor Tracker that's kind of like after the fact, based on, you know, his tweets and SEC documents. His average is kind of like the local high right now. What does it say up here? 29.9. But I don't think we know his address. I don't think he has a reason to like hide that he's buying, even though he maybe shouldn't be telling everybody where his levels are, because that's never a great idea. But Mike asks, do I think Powell and friends short the market? Well, they got in trouble for that. The Fed, a few members of the Fed, if you remember, there was like a big scandal. There was some Fed member who was actively trading when they were about to turn things around. I don't remember the details. I'm going to butcher it, but it does happen, and they shouldn't be doing that. But somebody got caught doing it, thankfully, and that person's gone now. But it makes you wonder, you know. at the same time, it's not like the press conference was a surprise. I think the biggest surprise was the dot plot, which is just basically their future expectations, where they're surveyed and they say, hey, do you think rates are going to be here on this date? Where are rates going to be next year in 2025? And the future projections were hawkish, as in rates higher for longer, as in potentially 2 more rate hikes, which is kind of insane. The market, though, is finally taking them seriously and selling off. Before it was just, we could say we had AI, we had whatever. But maybe this was just the crowded trade was being bearish and everybody was caught off sides. I know a lot of people were throughout the year. But the market wasn't really taking the Fed seriously. It looks like they finally are, to some degree. I mean, we're still higher than when we started hiking on the S&P. If you look at the meeting probabilities for the next meeting, which isn't until November 1st, the market is still thinking that there won't be a hike in November, but that may be a time when they hike. There's some high degree of they might hike between now and April, assuming things don't fall apart. But if the S&P sells off, then the odds of things falling apart are higher. So it's all just a interesting game of what do they really care about? They care about price stability and inflation and unemployment, but the third thing they care about for sure is the S&P. So if this sells off, things could get really interesting into November. On the other hand, if this sells off, it means that it's signaling trouble elsewhere, right? It's not like this is just in a vacuum and isn't connected to reality. If people think businesses are going to be in trouble, which they are, housing's in trouble, which it is, borrowing rates are infinity, essentially where they were a couple months ago, that's going to slow everything down, and that's the intended goal, right? The intended goal is to have mortgages at what they are now to slow everything down. So that's certainly working. Certainly working. Are the Washington Commanders winning? You might be in the wrong stream, Dom. I don't know. I don't know anything about football. So this is the S&P, and it still has, again, I can't be bullish on this in any regard here. Even if it bounces at the horizontal, think about the headwind of higher rates. You've got TLT, which is the long bond, the 20-year, making fresh multi-year lows today. What is this, a decade plus? Is it a 20-year low? So for the people who don't know, not that I'm some expert here because I'm not, but if rates go up, prices come down. That's how bonds work, okay? So rate, price. So if you buy a bond today and rates go up, the price of that bond continues to go down. Now this, if you remember, I kind of remember things based on the practicality of what's happened. Like, I didn't really know what calls were on options until the GME thing. That's just how my mind works. But anyway, there's hold to maturity versus the other bucket. What's the other bucket called? I'm blanking. I don't know. But if you hold this bond for 20 years, China does, Saudi Arabia probably does, they don't care what the price is because they're going to get their money back. But if you need to sell for any reason and you're taking like a 50% drawdown in between holding to maturity, that's going to be a problem. So that's kind of why people are freaking out still, right? But this isn't over. This doesn't look good. It looks like rates want to go higher. Looks like TLT wants to go lower. Another thing we've seen a lot of is retail kind of assuming this is the bottom for TLT, which is never a good sign. and just suggests things are going to get uglier, right? Things are going to continue to get ugly. And if you look at like the US 10-year, it's not just me talking about this. You know, I'm the last person you should be listening to on any of this bond stuff. I'm just LARPing, you know? But if you look at this long-term trend, right? You know, we broke out of this, which is an issue for banks. It's an issue for anybody holding this stuff long-term. It also kind of says that people think yields need to be higher in order to buy that debt. And then you get into this debt spiral problem. So knowing a little bit about what's going on this side of the equation really helps the crypto side of the equation, because then you could say, oh, right, you're getting paid 5% on your yield. Let's go to the 3-month, right? The 3-month is, take off log. The 3-month yield is not higher than it's ever been, but it's multi-year highs, right? To get 5 1/3, 5 1/4, whatever it is on 3-month yield is insane relative to where it was, right? So that's going to continue to pull people out of any market that doesn't have that yield. It's going to continue to make people question why they're in risk markets, you know, risk market premium. If the differential between what you're getting on risk versus what you're getting on a risk-free instrument isn't that much, right? Then people are going to move over here. And that's what, again, that's sort of an intended effect, to get rates higher, to calm down the economy. So anyway, just knowing a little bit about that. And by Powell saying, again, for the 50,000th time, higher for longer, just continues to hit home. Hey, they're going to hold it here, right? They're going to absolutely crush people and everything until inflation comes down. The other thing was the dot plot, right? The dot plot signaled more hikes potentially, higher rates potentially, and that's just bringing everything down. Another thing to pay attention to, obviously, is energy and inflation. One of the reasons why they're on this higher for longer bandwagon is because of inflation, right? Inflation's still, CPI is still 3.7. Trueflation is not even close to 2% down here. If you don't know what this is a real-time estimate of an inflation basket. It's not the exact same thing as CPI, but it doesn't have a lagging housing component, for example, whereas CPI does. CPI's housing component's like 6 months lagging. Anyway, so that's why the Fed is saying what they're saying, and they've been saying the same thing for a long time. You've got people on the other side of the equation, though, saying like this is too much, rates are too high, things are going to crash, and that's historically what the Fed does. That's how they get inflation down, right? That's just part of the game. The one thing that stuck out to me yesterday during the press conference was when Powell was talking about soft landing not being the base case, and everybody's like so sure. Soft landing just means we're not going to go into a recession. Unemployment's not going to spike. We're going to thread the needle and somehow be okay with, you know, high rates and not imploding the economy. But things are still looking okay for many metrics, right? Unemployment's still low. The S&P had been doing fine up until yesterday. So I don't know. Let me just read some chat here. Let me catch up. Sorry. Binance French. Yes, please, guys, look. I don't want to fund an exchange. Kraken sponsors me, obviously. Okay. So this isn't like some hate against an exchange or anything, but it's probably not a good idea to keep your money on Binance in the near term, right? That's all I'm saying. Potential W on SPX. W on SPX on what time frame? I don't see that. Better rates for your favorite shitcoins? Yeah, and exactly as Golshi says, like it's harder to find profitable trades in equities or crypto, and instead you're gonna just throw your money in something that collects yield, right? Like it's gonna be a no-brainer, and it continues to be a no-brainer, especially up here when to me, again, like this is bearish. All over this chart is bearish. And that's, if I knew nothing about rates, if I knew nothing about Powell or the Fed, and I only look at this chart, that doesn't change anything. Like it makes sense. It's bearish. I don't know what to tell people. I don't know of too many people who are like super, super bullish. But if the world's global leading tradable instrument is bearish and bonds are like yields are exploding, right? You know, that's generally not a good environment for risk assets, including crypto, unfortunately, including Bitcoin, especially altcoins. On the daily you're looking at it, I don't see a W here though. I guess I'm just blind. The weekly cloud, it's kind of looking like where this could go. I think 4,200 makes sense. It's probably a little too low. You know, the cloud likes 43, we're almost there. But if this head and shoulders breaks down, yeah, 4,200, sure, right? But it looks okay in the moment, trend-wise. Like it's just resetting momentum. It's not like full-blown bear trend, but people are certainly taking it like that because of what Powell had to say for rates, right? The Qs, same thing. You know, I was kind of drawing this right shoulder a little earlier than it actually played out, but having that knowledge at the very least helped me, you know, not jump into anything in a big way. Do I think Binance going down gives life to the crypto market? I think if Binance goes down, crypto's in a lot of trouble because you know, if you like trading shitcoins on Binance or any shitcoin adjacent Binance product, those are all going to be in trouble. Binance IEOs, whatever, right? Those are all going to be swirling down the drain. But for the most part, Binance is like the world's repository for offloading, off-ramping crypto. So I think there's a pretty good hypothesis that if Binance goes down, maybe the selling on everything isn't as significant, right? Like if I'm trying to carefully say this, if I'm some entity who's trying to sell coins after a ransomware attack or something, right? Based on chain analysis, a lot of that happens on Binance. So if that's harder to do after Binance has issues, maybe that's better for everybody, you know? I don't know. It's not like anybody wants Binance to explode, besides like the ultra uber Bitcoin maxis. It's just tiring to hear these headlines over and over and over again, to see all these headlines that they're losing banking in every single country, and you know, it just goes on and on and on and on and on. And we just can't move on, right? There's no closure. It's just this constant negative thing. You know, maybe CZ steps down. What a crazy world that would be, right? Maybe they get out of the United States completely. I don't know. But we continue to see these negative headlines and just negative impacts on crypto generally. So to see Binance gone would be a very interesting time for sure. The Qs, again, like everything looks the same, right? This looks bearish. I saw someone talking about IWM, which is like what, the Russell 2000, I think. This thing has a head and shoulders on it as well. It certainly hasn't done as well as the S&P, but not bullish, right? Now you could argue like long term, these are just smaller stocks basically. If you're unfamiliar, you could argue long term it's in a channel, it's just sort of ping ponging, but much like ETH, right, where it's got that maybe bigger macro pattern. It's also dealing with this head and shoulders breakdown. Joey, how's it going? Good to have you. Yes, I agree, Dark Trader. If Binance goes under, if you remember in one of the original ETF denials, they mentioned three things. They mentioned kind of offshore manipulation of price, which is kind of a backwards way of saying Binance. They mentioned BitMEX, I believe, or derivatives, and they mentioned Tether. Those three things still exist. BitMEX is basically neutered, right? They're very small compared to where they used to be, so they're kind of a non-factor. Tether's gotten so big that at this point, they're kind of shooting themselves in the foot, they being the US government. If they go after Tether because of the treasury component, you know, who's buying treasuries besides Tether right now? And then the Binance thing they're working on, you know, the DOJ and whoever else continues to deal with whatever's coming out of Tether. Who knows, right? Every other day it seems like they're unsealing documents or they're sealing documents. I think people just have had enough. Yeah, Paperclip is right. You know, the companies, he says the small caps have too much debt. If you're Apple, if you're Google, you've got tons of cash. You don't need to borrow money. But if you're a smaller business, you need to borrow money, and you're borrowing money at an extremely high rate. And that hurts the bottom line, obviously. If you can even get that loan or hold on to that debt or whatever. So yeah, everybody's getting squeezed. If you're not part of the club in the top 8, whatever, on the S&P, then you're kind of boned, right? Like, what do you do? Let me find where is it? This one. At this point, I don't even think you need to look at the Elite 8 if you're looking at the S&P or the Qs, right? Because they all should be fairly bearish. You know, that's kind of an expectation. Apple's falling out of the cloud for the first time since February. Doesn't look good. This also looks like, you know, bearish pattern to me. I think their iPhone, what is it, 15? I expect the pre-orders to be down. I expect sales to be down. Who can afford this stuff anymore? You know, like, obviously if you're well off you can, but the general public cannot. You have Microsoft looking ready to break down through the cloud. Now there isn't an alternative universe where this stuff doesn't actually break through the cloud and just regains strength. But look at NVIDIA. You know, doesn't look bullish, guys. I don't know. And if you can just sit and gather yield, unless you're short this stuff. Google breaking down from that. Rising wedge, bear div, makes sense. I don't know. I'm just bearish kind of across the board here, even on Tesla. Nothing bothers me more than the people on mainstream media saying, "Man, Tesla's so well off. They don't have to pay workers shit because they don't have unions, right?" I mean, is that the world we want to live in? I don't know. Maybe it's just because I'm from Michigan and I'm very adjacent and aware of the car industry. But anyway, yeah, Tesla looks okay, right? It's above the cloud, but I wouldn't touch that there. And the more you scan through these charts, and the more you see people just saying, I'll sit it out," you know, that collectively certainly has an effect on prices here. Netflix just getting walloped still. I don't even know if it stops there. I guess it's got the 200-day moving average. But think about it. You've got student loan payments. You've got mortgages at infinity. You've got car loans at infinity. You've got credit cards at 30% almost. Like, and inflation is still on a multi-year basis not going down that fast, right? Everybody's getting squeezed everywhere. So if you're not in like, you know, the top 1% of businesses or the top 1% of individuals net worth wise, you are feeling the pain in every direction. Man, Amazon, what happened here? Yikes. Amazon actually looked okay, right? Up until a couple of days ago, I guess. But um, a lot of these charts too have some sort of like megaphone thing. I'm not a big megaphone person, but I don't think that's a continuation pattern. I guess it, like Google, it had some sort of div on it. But the sooner the market actually takes the rate hikes into serious consideration, you know, the sooner we will be closer to the end. I don't really think the Fed can hold rates here until mid 24 without something just absolutely collapsing. But we'll see. We'll see what unemployment looks like a year from now, 8 months from now, whatever. Can't imagine things are just all hunky dory and we're fine based on the market reaction so far. So yeah, legacy looks incredibly bearish. Let me just look at oil, which is another issue for the inflation picture. That hit its technical target. Again, if you know nothing about OPEC Plus, if you know nothing about headlines, and you're just paying attention to trend metrics and chart patterns, you are pretty much on the right side of the trade here most of the time. We were talking about this, I don't know, months ago as a possibility. Hit its target. It'll be good for everybody if oil comes down. It still looks, it's still on the bullish side of things, but it's clearly cooling off a little bit. I was kind of expecting a bear div first before it cooled off as much as it has, but hit its target. Can't deny that. So it's good that it's coming down. The question is like the direction of the trend. Is it going to stay down? Is it going to drag everything else down with it? And there's DXY, our good friend. DXY, which is also in somewhat of a rising wedge, right? It was up for 9 weeks in a row. Ultimate pain is the Fed keeps raising. We don't go into a recession. Unemployment just sort of slowly creeps up. And dollar goes to like 111, right? that would be the ultimate slap in the face. There's a little bit of a bear div here on the dollar too. I mean, maybe you might see this like break down to the Kijun or the 200-day and then go nuts, right? I think people have talked about dollar strength enough. I don't need to continue talking about it, but still looks good. Technicals still look very good. So not much has changed week over week. One other thing to like just be aware of, because DXY is mostly euro in the basket in the index, and we're kind of inverse Dixie on Bitcoin, on crypto. Paying attention to the euro for Bitcoin is probably makes sense, right? Unfortunately, as much as I think euro lands a dumpster fire, until this turns around trend-wise, we may have headwinds, right, on crypto. Just another like correlation to watch. Certainly doesn't look bullish here, right? Just a giant mess. So yeah, Dixie, bullish. Oil, bullish but pulling back. Legacy across the board for the most part, getting increasingly bearish. Definitely rolling over, which I think is a good sign. Yields higher, which, you know, back to the train track analogy, if you watched the video I did a couple weeks ago, I don't know why I love this analogy, but Imagine you get squeezed between the train and the platform. You're dead as soon as the train moves. Everybody knows you're dead, right? But in the moment, like there's this stasis equilibrium where things are okay, you know. But eventually, something's got to give. The train's got to move, and it's over, right? They cannot save you. That's kind of how I feel everything is right now. Um, Everybody knows we're eventually due for a recession. I think the yield curve is the highest, or it's the longest it's been. It's like 216 days, I think. A 210 inversion, which just means you're getting paid more to hold short term than long term yield here. And the recessions don't come typically until the uninversion, right? So everyone's like screaming about the yield curve every time that it went inverted. That's just like the preamble to when we actually see the recession, right? So it is very likely when this uninverts that we see problems. Anyway, so that's our foundation for crypto right now, as I see it. Hollywood up. Is $100 plus oil possible? I don't see why not. I just think that's a tough bet. Like in the moment, I gotta find my oil chart. Sorry. I mean, the trend is still bullish, right? Much like August, where it pulled back and regained momentum. Kind of again, if they can keep cutting supply, and they want to target a certain level, if they're looking at the SPR and saying, "Oh, Biden's draining it, we're going to keep decreasing supply," and they want to play that game because that's what a cartel does. Like that's why they exist. What up, EK? Then they're going to do that, right? On the flip side of that equation, if we globally enter a recession, a recessionary period, I don't think oil is going to go to 100 in that environment. But, I guess that's the things to watch out for. Do they keep cutting supply? Do we keep trying to fight it by draining the SPR to zero? They do. They do, Gulshi. They keep changing the oil tokenomics. But that's why a cartel exists, right? To make sure prices are at a certain level, or, to make sure things happen a certain way. It just is what it is. It's part of the game. So yeah, I'd watch for SPR stuff. I'd watch for supply stuff. That ultimately probably is what fuels this. From a technical perspective, it could keep going. Doesn't look tired yet. It looks overbought, but it doesn't look tired. What I'd watch for is if we get a higher high and there's a bear div, that's when things get less likely for continuation at that point in time, right? It's just too early to tell here. But if the economy is still strong and people are flying, people are driving, then sure, oil demand is still extremely high and can keep going, right? It's going to keep going until that demand declines because they keep cutting supply. One thing to note, one of my favorite examples of divs that took forever to play out, just to keep in mind, I would call this a bull div. I don't know if like traditional div people would, but this took a whole year to eventually bounce, right? So I wouldn't just look at some short-term div and think, yeah, this is the top, let me short oil. I don't think it's that simple. This could take a lot. Like look at this div too, right? It could look like that. It could be 10 months of higher highs and just div, and eventually just collapse, right? So I would just be careful with that on a higher time frame perspective, looking at divs for oil, because oil specifically is one chart that historically has had extended divs. Even here I can see a div, right? Higher highs, lower highs. Eventually it both pulled back and kept going, but that is a long time right? That's like, again, another 10 months of div. Interesting that, by the way, I haven't looked at this on the weekly, but interesting that it's reaching for that cloud level on the weekly. CV, what up, my man? If you guys wanted me to look at anything specifically, I know I haven't even talked about crypto yet, but I think unfortunately you do have to have some sort of viewpoint on what's going on in the meat space because crypto's big enough now. Rates, you got to think again, since Bitcoin's existence, rates have never been this high, ever, right? Bitcoin created, rates were basically zero most of that time, and now we're fighting an uphill battle, right? We're that salmon swimming upstream. We're trying to spawn, we're trying to make babies here, and that stream just keeps getting more and more significant against us, right? It's not a train wreck, it's a train wreck. That's what Amin says about the euro. Yeah, and the euro, they keep raising into a recession, and they're still losing out on the currency pair, right? Personal question: is there ever a point where you take a stab at straight up shorting small amounts with stops and just collect yields? Yeah, I mean, right here. So here's the dream. The dream is you're somehow collecting yields and you have bids or asks on the book, or you're in an active trade. I don't know of any specific place where you can do that, but that's the dream, right? Is to have your toe like in both sides of the equation, where you are collecting yields on something in cash and have bids potentially, right? Because if you're just now like, let's just go to Bitcoin. If you're thinking like, okay, things are bearish, I want to make sure I'm like positioned correctly. I personally think you'll have time to buy. Like it's not going to be, okay, you may miss like the bottom 5%, the bottom 10% of a wick or something, but I think you're going to have time to get into a move and be positioned correctly if you're not trading some super low time frame stuff. So for me, it just makes more sense right now to play the yield game versus worry about like funding an account. Now, in a bear market, when the support staff isn't swamped with requests, I think it's important to have an account in 5 places, get verified in 5 places, like have all your ducks in a row so you're ready to go at the click of a button now, and you're not waiting till last minute, right? Have that plan for yourself. So like, okay, Bitcoin's at 25K, Bitcoin's at 23K, like what am I doing here? You should never like get to that point in price and then have to think about what you need to do. You should just be doing it. What I've been doing on the DCA side is just DCAing a little bit every week, regardless, right? Play the yield game, buy some every week. Don't stress out too much, right? But I'm not necessarily trading this. I do have an active short on ETH right now, on GMX, but I'm not trading Bitcoin per se. Yada asks, I want to learn the basics of Ichimoku. Well, you came to the right place. Is there a setting default on TradingView? Do you videos to teach? Yes, there's tons of videos I have on Ichimoku. If you just search my channel, Cloud, they should pop up. The settings I use are in the top left. I'm sure it's too small to see. 20, 60, 120, 30. That's what I use for my cloud settings. So the cloud is bearish. Obviously, we have a death cross as well, which, these are just data points, people. Don't get upset at me. I did a video on proof of work altcoins, and man, you would think that I struck a chord there with some people. All I'm saying is if you're a proof of work altcoin and you need a security budget and you don't have one, then that's going to be an issue as far as the chain is concerned. That includes Litecoin, Dogecoin, Monero. Not really. Monero is probably going to be fine because they have tail emission, because they have a different CPU mining ecosystem. Ethereum Classic is in trouble. ETH Powell is in trouble. Not that anybody trades that anymore. Some people didn't even realize that Doge needed to be mined. Some people didn't realize that Doge was merge mined with Litecoin, you know? And that makes sense. There's a lot of new people since the last run up, but those alts are going to be specifically vulnerable, whereas proof of stake alts will not be, to some degree, and ERC20 alts will not be vulnerable to that specific issue. Zcash is another one that has had 51% attack issues crop up in the past week. Yeah, exactly, Joey. I'm making community members very upset. All I'm saying is it's a data point. You don't have to pay attention to it. You can ignore it. I don't care, right? I don't hold this stuff, but I'm seeing what's happening here with block rewards come down, prices come down, and potentially come way down, right? And then you're going to have real problems. Anyway, Bitcoin's going to be fine. Bitcoin is not part of that equation in the moment. People are talking about drive chains and adding side chains, and ordinals are picking up again, blah, 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 right? Whatever. But Bitcoin is not part of that problem in the moment. Anyway, Bitcoin. Okay, so Death Cross, check, bearish. Below the cloud, bearish. Okay. What about B-bands? What do daily B-bands look like? Daily B-bands look okay. B-band squeeze when volatility contracts, they expand when volatility expands. On the daily, we've kind of just been ranging, so it hasn't been too exciting. On the weeklies, where the show could really pop off if we make lower lows here. As it is, we are on the bearish half of the 20-week moving average. And if we expand the B-bands to the downside, that's when you know that there's going to be a dip, there's going to be bearish momentum, there's going to be continuation. I mean, look at what happened in April, right? April 2022. Walking the bands down, walking the bands down. The opposite is true in 20 and 21. Walking the bands up, walking the bands up. Okay, so we're not quite there yet on the bear trend side of things. Excuse me, and there's no guarantee we will, but it's just something to watch for, right? Something to watch for. We haven't recaptured the 20-week moving average either yet, so that's another very bearish signal in the moment that things are not holding an expectation of higher highs. Okay. Now the weekly cloud, this is where things get exciting, because we are finally actually trying to get back into the weekly cloud again. The market's kind of fighting that. It makes no sense to me whatsoever, logically, right? That this actually plays out anytime super soon, that we go to 42. That's the target. If you're unfamiliar with the cloud, there's a special type of trade where if we start to close inside of the cloud, there's a pretty high chance that we try to reach for the other edge of that cloud. When the cloud is as thick as it is here, then that suggests a decent setup and a decent trade, right? That's why I've been paying attention to this specifically. And historically on the weekly, these setups, I don't think we've had a failed weekly. I will count this as an edge to edge because it did. This was kind of a dud as far as the trade. Right, the trade was already over by the time we got to the cloud, but we went to the edge of the cloud once we started. And then 2016, same thing. This one took a long time. This is what I'm expecting for the current setup. I'm expecting this to take a year, potentially, right? A very long time. And then this is the actual first one, which also happened, and we saw some move prior to that setup. I'm trying to find, yeah. So if you look at the halving dates too, this aligns with the halving date. It would make sense that if we have a halving in April 24, we could potentially get, wherever that is, somewhere in here, we could potentially get to 42 by April 24, right? So if you have some long-term trade in mind, yeah, I like that. But you have to think about yields, and there's always a trade-off. There's always an opportunity cost. Do I want to sit in yields and be guaranteed X risk, or sorry, X yield with no risk, or do I want to trade this, right? Personally, I would rather trade this on leverage than sit in cash, but I don't think that time is here just yet. But it looks really good. 3 more days, exactly fed. 3 more days. It's kind of an interesting call because, you know, the world around us is falling apart, right? Not literally, but the equities world, the legacy world is having a breakdown. So do I have high confidence that this is going to hold in the moment? Not really, but I'm not going to fade it completely, you know? That's why I've been DCAing. I think DCAing is the smartest thing you can be doing right now. Even if this goes to 20, even if this goes to 15, you know, I have no issues with DCAing just continuously, personally. Depends on everybody and what they're doing with their stack, obviously. One other edge to edge to refresh your memory is this one in 2019. Now, this took a long time to set up. Unlike 2019, now we don't really have a bullish reversal pattern, which again kind of gives me pause for this weekly edge to edge. But the important thing here is don't rush it. It's going to take a while. Okay, it's going to take a while. I do not think we're going to go to 42 tomorrow. It's going to take a while. There was a chance for, you know, let's say I'm wrong and things do go to 42 tomorrow effectively. Let me pull up. I gotta find a chart I can write on. If for whatever reason we like double you out here and get above the cloud, then it's game on, right? I don't think that's gonna happen. I don't know in what universe that would happen with the current environment we're in, but if it happens, I'm not gonna fade it. It's just, you can't assume that's gonna happen until it happens, right? And you can sort of measure this out and you can say, all right, well, this is the W, we'll say here. This isn't like a great trade. The trade makes sense because your resistance is the same horizontal, right? It doesn't tell you anything you don't already know. Like the current local high is the target, right? So we have to complete the W, get above the cloud, and then figure out what we're going to do before we really know what's going on here. I'm not confident that we actually do that until we actually do that, you know? So things just look bearish to me across the board for Bitcoin, unfortunately. And the maximum bearish target would be, you know, if this plays out, right? I'm talking about this for a long time, got a lot of hate for this. I don't care, right? I wish this wasn't the case, but we clearly have something here that doesn't look bullish, you know? Like there isn't some macro pattern here that's going to save us. So if this breaks down, I like 20K, sure. Whatever, right? We're in a bear market on trend. We're in a pre-halving year. We've got yields at infinity. You know, this isn't a time for Bitcoin to do well generally. So the expectations for me aren't really super high in that regard. I wish that wasn't the case, but hey, you know, the other thing you can look at is who's here right now. I look at my subs or impressions or whatever on the social side. It's not exactly growing. You know, I'm not seeing growth. That could just be me, right? But I think across the board, everyone's just trying to hold their head above water and not worried about things like Bitcoin. We still have this pitchfork. a lot of things could happen here. I just don't think many of them are bullish in the moment. One other interesting thing about this is if we get above the cloud, we're also back above the midline here. I know this is like super busy, but if you look at the pitchfork, pick 3 points, get a rate of change, bullish half the pitchfork, bearish half the pitchfork. If we are back above the bullish side, that does give us room to get back to 42 on the weekly. So there's a path that could happen. It just doesn't look probable to me right now. DZ says, I never forget how you made the Link Marines upset at 44 when you were talking about the team dumping millions. Yeah, that's another thing, you know. If a project is telling you, not directly, but, you know, Link, right? Hey, buy our coin, hold our coin, stake our coin. We're going to just keep dumping on you, but trust me, one day this is going to be worth something. You know, like, anytime you have additional sell pressure, it reaches a tipping point. Eventually, there's nobody to buy it, right? Eventually, it falls over. That's just common sense. So, if you've got Link, the team, you know, they were dumping this whole way up, right? But eventually, that nominal amount gets higher and higher and higher and higher, and you just can't sustain itself at that point. Yeah, diamond hands, Joey. Somebody earlier was asking about Link. I think Link looks fine, but I don't really care about it until it's at 850, right? That's just me. Now, if you want to buy this, sit in the chop, embrace the chop, go for it. I'm not going to stop you. But for me, it looks trendless and pretty flat and sideways. So I'd rather just collect yield, right? There's always that opportunity to do something else. It's kind of messy on the cloud because the daily isn't going to tell you much. It's just chopping around, right? And I don't know why that breaks for me. Probably because I'm not logged in on Kraken, but it looks fine. You know, it's not like yeah, we can go down the list. Let me talk about ETH real quick. Find that chart. I think it's here. I mean, is anybody bullish ETH? Like, realistically, is anybody bullish ETH here? Speaking of OPEC changing the tokenomics, you know, ETH has done everything it's in its humanly power to change the tokenomics to get this thing bullish. And it hasn't mattered, right? Proof of stake, burning fees, blah, 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 blah. Hasn't mattered yet. There'll be a day when it matters. It just hasn't mattered yet. This does not look bullish to me, sorry. For all the same reasons, right? Below the daily cloud, almost. Oh, this is the 3-day, my bad. Definitely below the daily cloud. Okay. Definitely has a death cross. I don't have it on this chart, but it's got a death cross. Bearish, right? It's out of a multi-month pattern. Never a good sign. What else we got? Any other bulls? Any other ETH bulls in the chat? I don't see it. I don't see it. I would much rather see lower prices. I want to see the ETH people get stressed. From a trading perspective, there's no free rides. Sorry. This whole thing is not a good sign that we're just casually dumping out of this triangle, and there's no reaction. Right? The market doesn't really care. I'm trying to find my actual ETH chart. Here it is. Markets don't really care that we're down here. You know, even if we're super generous and we say, yeah, we're still in the ascending triangle, guys. Trust me. We better pull up soon, because it's going to be pretty over pretty quickly if we don't. So I like 1200 for ETH. That hasn't changed. Still looks bearish. Still looks yucky to me. And ETH BTC, man. That chart is starting to get super interesting. Extremely not having a good time here. Making lower high, lower high, lower high, lower high. this whatever it's called, curved line, really being listened to apparently. I like this below the cloud. I like this below. This doesn't look like it wants to go up right now, right? So yeah, you can buy ETH, collect your yield, watch this thing drop another 50%. Like, I'm not gonna stop you. I don't care, right? Okay, go for it. But it just doesn't look bullish in the moment, you know? I would much rather think about ETH when it's at a ratio down here of 0.03 to 0.038. That's a great level if you're going to jump into anything. So I don't like this chart at all. I don't know many people who do. I think the ETH maxis are kind of in denial that again, after changing the tokenomics, things haven't really picked up. It hasn't really played out. Sorry. It hasn't mattered yet. Maybe it'll never matter. I'm not saying that, but it hasn't mattered yet, right? We haven't had an actual bull market during these conditions for ETH. That'll be the deciding factor for people, I think. If we have a bull market and ETH goes to 10K and ETH BTC goes to 0.1, they'll look like heroes. They'll be dancing in the streets, right? They'll be talking about the flippening. It'll be the greatest time ever. But right now, it's all just hopium. Has not meant anything so far. That's just the way the cookie crumbles for ETH, unfortunately. I don't see any bullishness at all anywhere. I mean, if anybody's got something, let me know, but I just don't see it. Dominance is up. I'm not going to really talk about that, but it's kind of expected. You've got the whiff of institutional inflows coming eventually, not anytime super soon, but eventually. I talk about this one a lot. This is the altcoin market cap. You tell me, right? I don't want to be bearish on everything, but you tell me if this looks bullish. I don't know. It doesn't look bullish to me, right? At best, we're ranging here. At least for Link, you can argue, Link's been ranging for over a year. I'm not saying it won't break down, but it looks okay, right? This continues to make lower highs and just, as a group, alts ain't it chief, unfortunately. I do expect this to break down. And look at rates, right? Rates aren't on your side, yields aren't on your side, flows aren't on your side, liquidity's not on your side. I don't know, I don't know what else to say. All right, let's look at people asking Matic, AVAX. Oh, if you're asking about AVAX, my friend, that is not a good sign. But we will take a look. All right, let's take a look at AVAX first. The problem with AVAX, I don't have any good data on this, but here's what happens in a bear market. You don't have the flows, you don't have eyeballs, you don't have excitement, you don't have the community. And meanwhile, the coin just keeps releasing emissions, right? It just keeps grinding people out from a inflation perspective. I think AVAX is one of the coins that has an extremely high emissions rate. And you're seeing that play out on the chart. This isn't bullish at all. It's sub 10 now. Below the cloud. No volume. Just a 45-degree angle. You might be bullish subnets. You might be bullish XYZ. It doesn't matter right now. I don't know what to tell you. The only thing that matters is there's no flows and people are still selling. That's what matters. Where could this go is the question, right? The question isn't, is this bearish? Because that's clearly the case. We can measure this. If there's a pattern, you'd measure the depth and project it downward. The problem is you get 0, right? It doesn't really help you. If you use fibs here, it doesn't really help you. Because you basically kind of get 0 as well. I think 5 makes sense, right? Like if I want to blindly put bids on this and forget about it for a year, sub 5 would make sense to me. If we look at, let me zoom out. Let me find a chart here where I can do that. This is kind of for all the layer ones. You know, this story isn't unique to AVAX. It's kind of the same story everywhere. Look at how many red weeks in a row. 9 red weeks in a row. All right, does it have a bull div? It does not. We're not seeing higher momentum on lower lows. Is volume picking up? No. Volume is flat. Volume is apathetic, which is not what you want to see. Now you could say, well, this is Binance, Josh. No one's trading there anymore. I mean, give me an exchange, right? I don't know. Coinbase? Volume looks pretty flat. Doesn't care, right? This is just coin emissions, it looks like, right? Just selling, 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 selling. Nobody cares. So anyway, there's that, right? There's no divs here at all. Is there a horizontal that could save you? Maybe here, right? Oh, no, we broke it, right? Where's the next level? I mean, the next zone, right, is what? Sub 5, 480 to 280. I don't know what changes the course here in the meantime, right? It just looks like it's over. It's not over, but it's not funny. But you know, it doesn't look bullish for most anything. AVAX is on an extreme bearish end of the stick for sure. So that's AVAX. We can look at AVAX. I should just pull up this. AVAX BTC. I think there was some sort of wedge or something on that. Oh, okay, so there's a massive channel on AVAX BTC, right? So not only are you losing out on yield because you're losing money, right? You're not in dollars. You're losing out on USD on the pair. You're also losing out on Bitcoin. So there's just this massive opportunity cost everywhere for holding this thing. Does it look like, again, is there a div? No, I don't see a div here. It's oversold, but there's no div on volume. There's no div on RSI. It's still in a bearish channel. It's not even to like, you know, some horizontal that makes sense yet. Hasn't challenged that level. This probably keeps going, right? Nobody cares. It's apathetic. Volume's just flat, you know. This is kind of what every single alt chart looks like for the most part right now. Matic is an interesting one because, you know, it's kind of, I'm not going to say it's the same, at least here. Let me just make this a little brighter. At the very least on Matic BTC, you do have what looks to be a div because you're getting a higher low on momentum, a lower low on price. Will that necessarily save the pair? I don't think so, but at the very least you have that. Let me just look at volume real quick. What you want to see on these alts is you want to see everyone just throwing up their hands and saying, you know what, enough's enough. We're all going to capitulate together as a community. Doggone it. We're not seeing that yet. You know, volume's still declining on Kraken on the USD pair. So the worst thing you can see is a slow bleed, apathy, nobody cares, right? What you want to see is massive wicks, capitulation, fear. You want to see fear. We haven't seen that yet on alts broadly. Back to Matic BTC though. If this range breaks down, which it looks like it wants to, you know, it's, what is that? A 50% drawdown? 60%? I don't know, guys. Doesn't look good. I wish I wasn't that person. Back to this chart though. Sorry, I'm bouncing around. I have too many charts. If we look at the total market cap, you know, it's a realistic possibility that we retrace the entirety of everything pre-2021, right? Now, if you want to look at just total 3 here, and without my extra notes or whatever taking things out. Look at that volume too. The reason I take out the stablecoins and wrapped BTC, I just think it doesn't give you a super great picture, but look how far this needs to go down sub 2020 or pre 2021, right? It's hard because stablecoins are going to prop this thing up, but that's another 70% down. Do I think that's going to happen? No, but I think some of these alts could have another 50% drawdown. We just haven't seen it yet, We haven't seen it yet. I would watch the coin emissions. If the coin emissions are high, like they are in AVAX, pretty sure, and there's nobody here to buy the other side of that, you got to assume any emissions are being sold by the business, the whoever, right? Just assume they're being sold into the market. Certainly looks like that. Go Jogan says, why buy AVAX if it's down only against BTC? I agree. Look at Matic. Look at any alt right now. Is there anything that's strong against BTC? This, you could argue, also in a channel or something, right? There's something going on here. Clearly, it's just losing week over week over week over week. Until that breaks north, why bother? I agree. The one chart that did look good against BTC was XMR BTC, actually. It's even up today. I think this is a trade entry once it flips the horizontal. I'd argue that there's some sort of head and shoulders here. This is probably the best looking chart against BTC right now. I don't know of anything that looks much better than this. Trending, it's on the right side of the cloud. It's probably got a decent cross. Look at that. How good am I? How good are we, chat? Come on. I mean, this is why you're here. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, I'm looking at the looking at the 5200 cross. And now oh, there it goes. Almost have a bullish 5200 cross here as well. So this is what you want to see. I don't want to hold an alt to 0 against Bitcoin. I want to trade stuff like this. This is an example. We haven't broken out yet. It's pre-breakout, it has a reversal pattern, it has trend on its side. This looks much better than Matic, right? Matic ain't it, unfortunately. Matic on the USD pair. Let's go Binance again, sure. Kind of similar vibes. On the weekly has a bearish DK cross, which is interesting. A recross, that's never good, but there's not a lot of support if lows start breaking, right? And again, all the alt charts are going to look like this. In 2021, we went straight up, and now we're ranging. And if we break the range, look out below. It's anybody's guess until the base, right? The 2020 base. That this could find support at 15. It could find support at 5. I don't know, but there isn't any like obvious supports here on Matic until much lower. If this does break down, then you could say, well, it's very clearly a support at 37. I'd agree with you, but I don't think we're in an environment where supports are going to hold necessarily, especially if rates are 5.25 plus for the next 6 months. We're going to see some very interesting charts on alts for sure. You have coins like XMR, RNDR, and Caspa. I don't know what those last two are. ETH GPU miners migrating to some proof of work coins. Yeah, so back to the alts proof of work comment. At some point, mining them makes sense based on the difficulty adjustments. The problem is if hash rate's coming off, and like Litecoin, right? Litecoin's a good example. It's almost a $5 billion market cap still somehow. If Litecoin loses this massive support, right? Mining becomes less profitable, and hopefully the difficulty adjustment takes care of that, and it becomes more profitable at some point. But they just had a halving on Litecoin, so miners are already making less money. Luckily, they mine both Litecoin and Dogecoin. But if both coins have a 50% drawdown, is that going to be enough for miners to just say bye, see you later? The good thing about Litecoin and Doge specifically is they are script ASICs, so you can't really do much else with them. So at the very least, people aren't going to leave forever, but it's a consideration. That's all I'm saying. If things get ugly, it's a consideration. That the market just gets angry from a fundamental perspective. Supports don't hold in the bear market, says Joey. I agree. I wouldn't just assume that this is going to hold, you know. You have to be pretty brave to want to buy here, I think, on Litecoin or any chart that looks like this. Having or not, you know. Monero looks good, says Fed. I agree. Dot and Phil, they're now at their low. Is Dot? Let's check Dot. Dot on Kraken is one of the better places to look at it just because of the chart. That was clearly in daily cloud. Yeah, and there's no divs here. There's nothing, right? Nobody cares. Dot is another you know, alt layer 1. Not a lot of activity on chain. It's basically at its listing price, you know. Where could this go? 2? You know, another 50% down. I don't know, guys. It doesn't look good, right? It just doesn't. Again, I would check the emissions on these. I don't have the data. Like, I don't know where to pull that immediately, but stuff does not look good in the moment. And just in case you're like, it can't go lower, it can't go below its listing price, let's look at comp. Let's take a walk down memory lane. You know, people saying, oh, this stuff, I'm not saying people are saying that, but I know people are thinking it. You know, this can't go below its listing price. Well, comp sure did. Comp went down another, what is this? Another 60, hey, what do you know, 60%, 70%. It's certainly possible that can happen. I remember people thinking at the time, oh, this can't go lower. I got news for you. It can, and it does, and it doesn't really matter where the listing price was. It mattered for a moment on comp, right? Remember all that real world asset hype for comp? Man. At least in the near term, not looking so hot. Back in the range, right? This just hits home the same concepts over and over again. Do you want to have this opportunity cost where you're sitting in this stuff that's ranging for God knows how long, or do you want to collect yield, you know? Yeah, sorry. I'll look at INJ. Let's take a look. Instant reaction looks neutral, looks okay. Doesn't look terrible. Clearly has a resistance at 950. Maybe there's some sort of trend line. I don't know. You know, it's kind of like ETH. You're hoping this holds. I just don't know how a single alt does well when the entire market is collapsing, you know? It's possible. It's just improbable. Look at my list today. I don't know if you can see that because my face is in the way. My entire list, let me try to move this. My entire list is red. Regional banks on the bottom, red. TLT, red. Oil, green. That's the only thing. Gold, red. MSTR, red. Coin, red. BTF, futures ETFs, red. Bitcoin miners, red. Grayscale products, red. That is a yikes of a list right there. A yikes of a list. All right, what else you guys want me to look at? I think we've hit the high points. Is there anything? Yeah, I'm not looking at that. Sorry, BH. I'm not even going to speak that out loud. One interesting note, like if you want to trade Forex with crypto, you can do that on Kraken. I didn't really realize that till a couple days ago, embarrassingly enough. Like if you want to trade Dixie with stablecoins, you can do it on Kraken. Sol. Yeah, let's do Sol. Sol. I mean, of the layer ones, it has developers, a community. I think it's super centralized. I think it's a pile of junk, but that doesn't really matter. It does have to dodge FTX selling narrative, regardless of the actual amount that they will be selling. It's on everyone's radar, right? So until they're done with that, it's going to be tough without a bull market behind it. Solana, right? It's ranging. It's got a death cross basically, but it doesn't really matter because it's just been flat. To me, nothing is bullish until it's back above its daily cloud, at the very least, right? Someone's asking for the weekly Sol chart, I guess. We gotta go deeper here. We gotta find what's the best. Probably Binance, but and that's another thing, right? If Binance actually goes down, what's gonna happen to all these coins? These alts, right? Is that how we get a 50% drawdown across the board? Maybe. At least on the news, Solana is still in this bear channel, right? To me. So it's still, I don't know. There's just nothing here. Weekly, that's a 3-day. The trade setup that makes the most sense to me is, at the very least, get into something with yield for the next 3 months, the rest of the quarter, whatever it is, and then revisit this stuff. There just isn't much meat on the bone at the moment, On the decade time frame, alts look okay. Do they? I don't even know. Yeah, I don't see. Solana doesn't look as bad as some of these other coins, but doesn't give me confidence here to let's jump into Solana. Let's buy Solana. Especially the more I see people talking about being bullish Solana on Twitter, the less I'm likely to actually think it's bullish. Against Bitcoin, it's flat. I was actually looking at the Sol ETH pair, which might be increasingly interesting towards the next cycle. I don't think there's a trade here either, but if Sol grabs a narrative and the ETH people get angry, there's an interesting fight there. You don't see too many coins winning against BTC anymore because it's very hard to do, but they can eke out a trend against ETH in a bull market, like they did in 2021. What are the chances Binance goes down? I mean, what's your definition of going down? That's the other question. I think Binance US eventually is out of the country, personally. Binance.com? I don't know. I do not know, but it's got to be greater than 0. Did I look at uranium? I did not. I don't know what is a good ticker for uranium. Commodities have been doing well across the board. This is the only one that comes to mind as far as a uranium ticker. I think there are better uranium. Here you go, uranium ETF. All right, it's about the same. Yeah, it looks good. You know, right? Trade this stuff. Don't trade crypto. It's making higher highs. It had a multi-year trend. It kind of looks like Costco to me. I don't know what Costco looks like today, but look at this. Look at this thing. What a chart. Ranged and consolidated for a year. Broke out higher. Kept going. Looks great. Yeah, Go Jogan is correct that the other concern here is regulatory. If love it or hate it, again, you don't have to agree with it. You just have to acknowledge that, yeah, the regulatory agencies don't like certain coins for whatever reason from a securities perspective, and that may hinder long-term, listing of products. It may hinder inflows from the institutional side, at least in the U.S. Maybe not globally, but definitely in the U.S. So I would agree, Solana has an elevated regulatory risk. ETH BTC on Polo, on the monthly chart. All right, let's do it. Oh, look at that. Look at this old scribbles I got here. I love when I just pull up a chart sometimes and there's stuff there. How's that for a pitchfork, huh? Man. This thing, I even have the like death sickle. This thing could come back to the midline of the pitchfork, That would make sense to me. Anyway, you wanted the monthly ETH BTC. I mean, I don't know what this is supposed to tell you exactly, but doesn't look great, right? Go linear. Okay, here we go. We're going. We're full on now. We're committed. Compare it to the bubble chart of Google. All right. We're learning something, chat. Google. I don't even know the ticker anymore. He wants line. Let's put it on a new scale. Let's put it on left. Is the I don't know what the point is. I guess the point is that like dreams do come true sometimes and we bounce here. I don't know. I don't know what we're supposed to be seeing. I don't see it. Gotcha. Wall Street cheat sheet chart. Yeah, I don't know. Nothing looks good, guys. I'm sorry. I wish I just had the best news. I just don't see it. RNDR. This also worries me. I know it's a stream and people ask about anything, but if people are asking me about stuff I've never heard of, not that I'm some all-seeing eye or anything. RNDR. What even is this? Render token. Oh, is this an AI token? Is that what it is? I'm guessing. I'm just guessing. So I like that it had, this consolidation. I don't know, guys. I mean, sure. What do you want me to say? It looks like it's recovering, I guess. It had a nasty reversal here. Maybe there's a daily play here. Maybe so. Maybe you can get into the daily and make it to 210. Not sure. But it looks possible. Doesn't look horrible. I'll give you that. It's trying at the very least. If it's AI, then it's got that on its side. I just don't know anything about it to really comment one way or the other. Anything else before we wrap it up? I don't think so. I think we kind of hit the high points. I mean, nobody even asks about... Oh, yes, it is like NVIDIA. Okay. Nobody even asks about ADA anymore, but... man, same vibes, you know? I don't know what's going to save these charts. I think it's going to be death first. Psalm. Sorry, I know you've asked that a couple times. That's the... trying to think of the words. That's the, what? Tokenized hedge fund type thing, or tokenized... I don't know where it's listed, though. That's the problem. It's on Atom, right? It's kind of like Enzyme, I think. I could be wrong, but yeah, this is the sommelier price, but I don't know. Anyway, looks okay. You know, let's look at Enzyme, right? I think that's on Kraken actually. Melon, as it used to be before BNY Mellon went after them. Everything just kind of looks the same, right? So maybe this thing holds up, but I don't know, guys. I don't know. Like, right? You could say, well, maybe this is an ascending triangle. Maybe this breaks out. Do we really think it's going to break out right now in this environment? I don't think so, but, you know, you do you. Chart looks okay. You just have to pay attention to coin unlocks, coin emissions, who's selling this stuff. You know, is there volume anywhere? There's not even a volume. I don't know where this osmosis is. That a DEX, I guess? Probably a DEX on Atom, right? I could be wrong. You know, one thing you always have to be careful of is there some whale that's just dumping this into the market. The best example of that, of course, is Ripple, because Jed McCaleb of Ripple fame and Stellar fame was just dumping on Bitstamp, right? So when you see this in volume for months, somebody's probably doing something, and they being the Ripple team, I assume, to keep this thing at a certain level. I could be completely wrong there, but that's my assumption anyway. I even think it's noticeable on the BTC chart too, on Bitstamp. That's where he was offloading. Maybe not. Anyway, I only bring that up because in a bear market, that's very important, obviously. Like, is there just some entity that's selling weekly? Just nonstop? It's funny you bring that up. I forget who... So he's... Somebody, Gospig in the chat. Gosptig is asking about this chart. The Chinese 10-year yield divided by DXY. I forget who talks about this on Twitter, but there's some correlation here to risk-on markets. I'm going to butcher the analysis. It doesn't pop out to me immediately, but Bitcoin halving dates. I guess what you want to see is Chinese 10-year yield rise relative to the DXY. I'm assuming, right? So maybe, you know? Anyway, I think that's all I got for today. Trump Whoppers, what a name, says these coins are not long-term investments. You can only swing trade them, even Bitcoin, unless you are leaving it in a trust for future generations. I mean, Bitcoin's got the best shot out of all of them. That's for sure. In my humble opinion, of course. We're literally at the bottom, starting risk on. Yeah, I mean, maybe. It's tough. It's tough to position for risk on when you're trying to dodge a recession, you know? Like, let's assume we have recessionary conditions. Do we really think crypto is going to survive that? I mean, is gold going to survive that? Gold, I guess it's just XAU. This will be the last chart, and we'll leave after this. Gold hasn't done anything yet. I guess the argument is with the yields rising, gold shouldn't do well. But you know, I don't know. With yields, it's just a giant concern for everybody because the risk-free rate is better. The Sharpe ratios come way down because you're not beating the risk-free rate enough to matter, right? This is like portfolio theory, institutional stuff that matters. It's just tough. Super tough when the 3-month yield is at 5.32, right? I'm very focused on this rather than anything else right now because it's risk-free. September's supposed to be crap, and it's living up to that, despite everyone kind of calling it and thinking that September was going to be bad. It was. Are people positioned for that? Doesn't look like it. You know, S&P's down, Bitcoin's down. Although I think Bitcoin might be... Is Bitcoin actually down on the month? Let's look. 1 month. Percent. It's still up on the month. No, that's not right. I don't know how to get to like exactly. All right, it is. So it is up on the month still, but you know, S&P, I don't think is up on the month. Could be wrong. Why is it so hard to? No, I don't want. Okay, month. I need like month to date or something. Yeah, the S&P is down 4% this month. Yikers! 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 Down more than Bitcoin. You know, that's okay. Last chart. This is another thing to watch and pay attention to. Bitcoin relative to the S&P. This is how we. Is this the right ticker? I guess it is. Let's go year to date. You know, this is how we win hearts and minds long term. It's not like people think Bitcoin's going to be some world reserve currency. Eventually, there's a tipping point where enough people incorporate it into a portfolio, they outperform the people who don't have it in their portfolio, and then it's just like a career risk problem where, all right, I need to figure out what this is, how to allocate to it. If we start outperforming the S&P consistently, which we have historically, just over like, you know, a near-term lens, it's been brutal. If we go the 1 year, we're still up 1 year too. 5 year, we're up. 6 month, we're down. But the point is, one way to actually get flows out of institutional Wall Street side and into crypto through something like an ETF would be a constant or decent outperformance relative to the S&P. Yeah, they'll just change the recession definition again. We'll see. We'll see if they, in an election year, declare a recession, because that has connotations, right? For, you know, sort of tipping hearts and minds as far as I don't want to vote for the incumbent if they caused a recession, but if gas is $6 a gallon, which it already is in California, That's going to be a problem anyway. Last question. Amin says, how can we not outperform the S&P? Companies rotate out of there and all the time. It's a mathematical certainty. I mean, we didn't outperform the S&P in 2022, right? You got to think from like a normie perspective. They're trying to dodge risk in many forms. Regulatory risk, headline risk, right? All the FTX stuff. Like, yes, that doesn't affect Bitcoin directly, but most people don't understand that, right? The next headline risk that needs to be dodged is the Binance problem, which we continue to see issues on the headline perspective. There's volatility risk, which is a bigger problem for the institutional legacy folks, but that can be abated by having a small sliver of a portfolio in something that's super volatile, right? So there are ways to engineer it that it makes sense. It's just kind of super scary for people when they don't understand what's going on, right? All right, ladies and germs. That's all I got for this one. Hopefully it was helpful. I don't know. I wish I wasn't so bearish, but that's where we are. Give me a like, give me a dislike, give me a subscribe, whatever you need to do. And I will see you on Sunday when we put out a video on Setup Sunday. That's going to be probably very bearish, but you know, things could happen on Friday. If we turn this boat around, I just doubt it. But until next Thursday, when we see you for the live stream, take care.